Good afternoon and welcome. This webinar is a collaboration between the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, VA Center for Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships, CFBNP, and the VA Office of Enterprise Management. My name is Trelesta Pauling. I am the Senior Outreach Specialist in CFBNP. I will be your moderator this afternoon. Everyone's phone has been muted. If you have a question during the presentation today, please type it in the Q&A box on the screen. I will read the questions at the end of the presentation, and the presenter will provide a response. This presentation will be made available after this webinar to everyone that attended today. This is a live recording. I would like to thank Ms. Sharice Smith-Lewis for this collaboration. We are grateful for your time today. Before we get started, I would like to introduce Reverend Conrad Washington, Director of the VA Center for Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships. Reverend Washington retired from the United States Marine Corps with 20 years of active duty service with a combat tour in 2004 in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom II. Reverend Washington is an ordained non-denominational minister in the Christian faith and actively serving. He received his master's degree of divinity in pastoral studies from Moody Theological Seminary, Master's of Arts in Business Management from the University of Redlands, and a Bachelor of Science degree in education from Southern Illinois University, Carbondale. Reverend Washington.
Hey, thank you, True. I appreciate it. And Happy New Year to all of you joining us today. We all made it into 2025. And for that alone, we should be rejoicing and grateful. But thank you for stopping by the VA Center for Faith-Based Neighborhood Partnerships. We are still here and excited about providing the most up-to-date and educational information we can to all of our faith-based and community partners across the nation. With all that being said, I want to give a special shout out to Ms. Sharice. Thank you, ma'am, for taking time out of your busy VA schedule to join us and share your knowledge. It's going to be very, very helpful to those who are attending today. And I want to assure each of you that as you tune in to us, we have some special treats this year for you. We're going to try to go outside the box and do some things that are going to be helpful to our veterans and their families. We're going to have some listening sessions. We're going to have some additional in-person events across the nation. But I want to give an invitation to each of you who are joining today to share with us how we can do business better. We want to make sure that we provide what you need across the nation, and each community is different. So please take an opportunity at the end of this presentation, this webinar, to reach out to me or my team so that we can get your comments, find out how we can zoom in and hone in on what's available to you. I can tell you some of the things that's on the radar for me for the webinars in the future would be grant writing. I've been in this position since 2018. And since I've been here, I've heard a lot of information and requests about, hey, Conrad, how do we get information regarding grants and grant writing? So that's something that we're going to be taking a look at, getting approval to provide you not just grants and how to submit for those grants, but how to write those grants as well. So we look for those in the future. With all that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's presentation and look forward to more. Be blessed.
Thank you, Mr. Washington. Excuse me, Reverend Washington. At this time, I would like to introduce Ms. Sharice Smith-Lewis, who will be providing today's presentation. Please read a summary of her bio on the screen. Ms. Smith-Lewis is currently the Chief of Staff for the PACT Act Enterprise Program Management Office, EPMO, where she is responsible for overall operations and fully addressing all aspects of PACT Act implementation. The EPMO is responsible for ensuring a unified, VA-wide approach to efficient and timely implementation of the PACT Act to enable an integrated veteran experience while maintaining transparency and accountability at the senior-most levels of the department. Ms. Smith-Lewis holds a Bachelor of Science degree in mathematics from Simmons College, a master's degree in healthcare administration from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and a master's certification in project management from ESI International / George Washington University. At this time, I give you our presenter for today, Ms. Sharice Smith-Lewis.
Thank you, Ms. Pauline. I'm so happy to be here this morning to speak with you all about the PACT Act and the opportunity it presents for veterans, their families, and survivors to receive world-class health care benefits from VA. We had a short video running at the start. We're going to try to make that available to you either at the end of the presentation or when the presentation goes out to you. So that will be a nice summary of the information I'm going to share today. So just to give you a little background about myself, I've served in the VA for 17 years, mostly on the healthcare side, supporting operations and management for over 170 medical centers that serve veterans across the country. Last year, I shifted to our PACT Act project management team to help with expanding care and benefits to more veterans. So a little over 2 years ago, the PACT Act, a historic law, was passed that not only expanded care and benefits, but also changed how we deliver critical services to veterans, their families, and survivors. The PACT Act is the largest expansion of veteran health care and benefits in generations, making it so the millions of veterans who were exposed to toxic chemicals from burn pits or other hazards during their service are taken care of for the conditions that followed them home from war. For the first time, PACT Act recognizes the impact toxic exposures have had on our veterans, their families, and survivors, and expands VA's ability to care for those who faithfully served our nation. In the past year, we've achieved significant milestones for veterans. We've not just delivered more care, but it's better world-class care, and it leads to better health outcomes for veterans than in the private sector. And we've not just delivered more benefits, it's faster, more accessible benefits delivered by meeting veterans where they are rather than expecting them to come to us. We've achieved better care and more accessible benefits by first expanding access earlier last year on March 5th to make millions more veterans eligible for VA health care years earlier than called for by the PACT Act. Specifically, we expanded access to all veterans who meet the basic service and discharge requirements and were exposed to toxins and other hazards while serving our country at home or abroad, and became eligible. They became eligible to enroll directly in VA healthcare without first applying for VA benefits. That includes all veterans who served in the Vietnam War, the Gulf War, Iraq, Afghanistan, or any other combat zone after 9/11. It includes all veterans who deployed in support of the global war on terror, and it includes veterans who never deployed but were exposed to toxins or hazards while training or on active duty here at home by working with chemicals, pesticides, lead, asbestos, certain paints, nuclear weapons, x-rays, and more. It's quick and easy to enroll. You don't need to be sick or file a claim to become eligible. All you need to do is show that you served in one of these locations or operations, or participated in one of the activities that could have exposed you to toxins or hazards. Millions of veterans and survivors have already begun receiving benefits as a result of the historic law, and you can too. So having said that, I'm going to ask we start sharing the presentation so we can go to the next slide and the slide after that. So this is just more succinctly what I said about the PACT Act that was signed into law in August of 2022. It's named after Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson, who passed away following his exposure to burn pits during his military service. So this law recognizes that our service members are regularly exposed through where they served or their MOS. And so if they have a toxic condition that manifests as a result of that, VA will assume it was from their service and they'll be eligible for benefits and health care. So next slide. So this slide outlines some of the key components of the PACT Act. So first, it expanded and extended eligibility for VA care for veterans with toxic exposures and veterans of the Vietnam era Gulf War era and post 9/11 era. It improved the decision-making process within VA for determining what medical conditions will be considered for presumptive status. Presumptive meaning if you have a disease or condition and it's tied to an area where we know you were exposed to certain substances, we will presume or assume that it was a result of your military service. Every enrolled veteran will receive an initial toxic exposure screening and a follow-up screening every 5 years. Veterans who are not enrolled but who are eligible to enroll will have an opportunity to enroll and receive the screening. So this is a non-invasive screening that's done in the medical centers, a series of questions, and it's intended to, even if you're not having any kind of illness right now, we've done the screening to determine whether you're likely to, and then if you have a disease condition that manifests, it's easier for our record keeping that we've already screened you. VA healthcare staff and claims processors will receive toxic exposure related education and training. We've been doing quite a bit of that over the last 2 years to improve the services that we deliver to veterans. The Act requires research studies on the mortality of veterans who served in Southwest Asia during the Gulf War, post 9/11 veteran health trends, and veteran cancer rates. So we're continuing to evaluate areas, theater of operations or exposures that may result in new presumptives. The Act will help VA build a stronger, more skilled workforce to meet the growing demand for benefits and services. So we've done a record amount of hiring in order to process claims and have staff ready to serve veterans in our healthcare arenas. And the Act authorized 30 new facilities or leases across the country, which provides greater access to VA healthcare. So the next slide. And so here's a map that shows all of the areas where we've identified that exposure to chemicals or burn pits may have occurred. And so I'm not sure if you can all see that very well. So I'm going to read off some of the areas, which I believe are repeated on the next slide. But Egypt, Lebanon, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, Somalia, Yemen, Djibouti, American Samoa, Guam, Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam. So when you get this presentation, you can look at that in more detail to see if those are areas where you or someone you loved has served, to ensure that if they're having any issues with their health, that they are submitting a claim to VA or that they are getting screened for exposure to toxic substances. And so in the lower left, there is a map that shows the types of exposures we know occurred. So air pollutants, chemicals, occupational hazards, radiation, and warfare agents. Okay, the next slide. So this slide talks about toxic risk exposure activity, which is TARA. So there is a record of where veterans served during their military service that should show on your DD-214, or we can get the information from DOD. And so our attempt is to identify exposures to toxins based on your military record, and we call that a TARA. VA has determined that veterans who were exposed to one or more of the following hazards or conditions during active duty for training, or inactive duty training participated in a TARA. So this is, again, kind of a repeat of what I'd mentioned on the legend on the previous map slide, the different types of air pollutants, chemicals, occupational hazards, and radiation exposures and warfare agents such as nerve agents, chemical and biological weapons. And so this is not a comprehensive list. There's a link there that show the different exposures. And so if you want to look that up, it is available at www.publichealth.va.gov/exposures/. Okay, next slide. And so again, as the map was showing, this is identifying the different areas and time periods of service where we know that there was exposures to our service members. So on or after August 2nd, 1990, for Bahrain, Iraq, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Somalia, and the UAE. And then on or after September 11, 2001, for Afghanistan, Djibouti, Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, Uzbekistan, and Yemen. Next slide. And we've established new presumptive locations for radiation in these locations. So if you were involved with the cleanup of the Inuiatak Atoll between 1977 and 1980, cleanup of Air Force B-52 bomber carrying nuclear weapons off the coast of Spain from January 17th, 1966 to March 31st, 1967. In response to the fire on board an Air Force B-52 bomber carrying nuclear weapons near the Thule Air Force Base in Greenland between January 21st, 1968 and September 25th, 1968. And if you're able to see, there's also a QR code on some of the slides that you can zoom in on to get more information on the information on that slide. Okay, next slide. So we have a list of conditions that we're presuming to be service connected that are listed here. And as I mentioned on an earlier slide, we're continuing to study exposures. We have several right now that we are exploring to see if there is a presumption needed, new presumptions that needed to be established. So this is a long list, and they're asthma, brain cancer, chronic bronchitis, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, chronic rhinitis, sinusitis. So I'm not going to read the entire list here, but again, there's a QR code link in the lower right if you're interested in more information about particular conditions. And then you can also look at more information at va.gov/PACT. Including information on how to file for benefits or submit your intent to file a claim. If you're still gathering your records, you can submit your intent to file in the interim. So next slide. Veterans who served in the following locations and time periods can enroll in VA healthcare now. So Republic of Vietnam, within those time frames, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, well, certain provinces of Cambodia, American Samoa and Guam, Johnston Atoll, and Vietnam VERA veterans are now able to apply for 2 new Agent Orange presumptive conditions that are listed there. The monoclonal gammopathy of undetermined significance and hypertension, high blood pressure. I believe folks are posting questions in the chat, so we're going to respond to the questions. This means we're able to at the end of the presentation, so feel free to add questions there. The next slide. So as of March 5th, 2024, all veterans who meet the basic service and discharge requirements and who were exposed to toxins and other hazards while serving are able to enroll directly in VA healthcare. This includes all veterans who served in Iraq, Afghanistan, the Gulf War, and any combat zone after 9/11. This expansion also includes veterans who deployed in support of a global war on terror contingency operation. So OEF, Operation Freedom Sentinel, Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation New Dawn, Operation Inherent Resolve, and Resolute Support Mission. And the next slide. As I mentioned earlier, we're encouraging all veterans to get a toxic exposure screening. It's a quick 5 to 10 minute series of questions. And you will have the initial screening as a baseline and then asking you to follow up every 5 years. And this can be done at VA medical centers and clinics. So you quickly make an appointment or this will be included in your visit for primary care. Next slide. Okay, veterans can file a claim for the new presumptive conditions. So you can file a claim if you've been previously denied under this new law. You can ask that your application be reconsidered. So you submit a supplemental claim. So you don't need to wait to file a supplemental claim. You can go ahead and do that now. As I mentioned, if you're still gathering your records, you can submit your intent to file a claim. So then it helps to establish when your claim is adjudicated, the actual start date of your benefits from the intent to file a claim. And when you're for a pending claim, if a veteran's condition was added to the list of presumptive conditions after the claim was filed, be able to consider it on a presumptive basis. So some veterans wondering about filing a claim and they don't have their records or may need time to gather that. There's various ways that you can provide proof. Obviously, your DD-14 is the most helpful, but any proof that you can have, as you know, as far as communications that show you were in a particular location would be helpful as additional information for your claim. So if you have any questions about that, the Veterans Benefits Administration is happy to help you to make requests or give you advice on records that would be relevant to filing your claim. So one of the hallmarks of this legislation is that it's changed the way that VA functions and taken a lot of we're attempting to take a lot of the legwork off of the veteran. So we've been doing more to make it easier for the veteran to navigate the system. And so we really ask you to, work with us and let us help you to make it easier on you to file your claims. Next slide. Okay, so other affected veterans and their survivors. Survivors may be eligible for VA benefits. And so the listed with dependency and indemnity compensation as well as burial benefits. So I ask that if you want more information to help survivors, you would again look at that va.gov/PACT website, or also click on the QR link that's shown on the slide. But yes, there's benefits for veterans and survivors. Okay, next slide. Okay, the Camp Lejeune Justice Act is another way that veterans can apply for benefits. Either you would be adjudicated under this act or under the PACT Act, but not this, not in both areas for the same condition. What we wanted to stress is that veterans should not be paying anyone to help them with their claims. There is veteran service organizations that can help you to file a claim. VAs has folks that can answer your questions. And so we don't want people to be scammed and think that they have to help someone and pay anybody to help them. These benefits are available to you at no charge, and we're here to help you navigate to get your claims adjudicated. So please be mindful of that. And if you want to learn more, there's information here on the slide so that you can find out if that particular area, if you were stationed at Camp Lejeune, if that's something that you would like to pursue. Next slide. And again, we are really concerned that our veterans are not falling victim to scams. And so here's some do's and don'ts about how you submit your applications, how you share information. So you can securely submit your application directly to VA online, and we will assist you in gathering supportive evidence. Be very cautious of companies who reach out to you, especially if they say they're contacting you on behalf of the VA, or that you can only get assistance if you use their help, because that is just not true. And don't sign a contract agreeing to pay an unauthorized company any percentage of your benefit. Don't sign forms that are not VA generated, or be fooled by companies who advertise special relationships, because those are likely to be scams. If you have any interaction with these companies, you can report them to the VA Office of the Inspector General's hotline at va.gov/OIG/hotline. Next slide. And so the question about when you should file a claim, you can apply now. You don't need to wait. Again, if you've been previously denied a claim, circumstances may have changed that will benefit you. So we suggest that you file a claim, a supplemental claim, so that we can re-review your claim. And next slide. Okay, so here are various ways that you can apply for VA healthcare. So again, you can go through the va.gov website and apply online. You can call us at 877-222-VETS. When you go to your newest VA medical center, you're able to apply, or you can mail VA Form 10-10EZ to our Health Eligibility Center at the address in Janesville, Wisconsin. Next slide. And that concludes my presentation. I just wanted to share a little bit more with you about what we've been doing since the legislation was signed in August 2022. As I mentioned, we've been doing more outreach. So for the first time in VA history, we sent text messages to millions of veterans who are unaffiliated with VA, encouraging them to come to us for the very first time. So although we have many millions of veterans in the country, a fewer number of them are actually enrolled and use VA healthcare. So we want to encourage all veterans, all those who served, to interact with VA. We've also executed a nationwide advertising campaign ranging from digital media to billboards to TV, informing veterans about the PACT Act and how it can help them, their families, and survivors. Our efforts helped us to achieve incredible milestones for veterans. Thanks to this largest outreach campaign in history, more than 860,000 veterans have signed up for VA care since the bill was signed into law, a 40% increase over the previous equivalent period. More than 4.4 million veterans have applied for VA benefits, which is a 29.8% increase and an all-time record. And more than 1.3 million veterans have enrolled in VA healthcare since President Biden took office in 2021. VA has delivered more than $600 billion in earned benefits directly to veterans, their families, and survivors during that time. And over 6 million veterans have completed toxic exposure screening, with approximately 46% reporting at least one potential exposure. So this will give us a good baseline with these veterans if there is a disease pathology, that we already have this information recorded for their service. And VA, the trust that our veterans place in us is very important. So we are proud to say that we've increased our veteran trust score to a high of 80.4%. So we've seen increased growth in that over the past several years. And then we're also proud that we've been supporting a record number of women veterans, with a record 741,259 women veterans receiving compensation payments from VA in 2024 represented 8.2% increase over last year, a totaling estimated $20.4 billion in earned benefits. So we've been doing a lot and hoping that it's reaching veterans, but we'd love to have these sessions so that we can continue to reach out to veterans and hear from them about, answer their questions, anything they feel we can be doing better. And this is really your VA, and we want it to be modeled in that way for you. So that concludes my presentation, Ms. Pauling.
Thank you, Ms. Sharice. Now we're going, it's the time for the Q&A. We're going to get right into the questions. I will read the question out loud and the name of the person that asked the question, and I will ask you, Ms. Sharice, to provide a response. If we do not get around to all the questions today, we will get the questions to Ms. Sharice, and she will provide a response back to you in a couple of days. We do have your point of contact information, so we can get that information to you. So I'm going to get through these questions. Some of the questions are kind of choppy, but I'll try to make as much sense of them as I can, Ms. Lewis. The first question comes from Lily Adams. And her question is, suppose the vet has already passed away. And I don't know if she means she's the survivor, the spouse of the vet, and maybe she's asking if she's entitled to anything. I'm not certain what her question is. It just says, suppose the vet has passed away, has already passed.
Yeah, so if you are a survivor of a veteran and you have access to their DD-214, that shows where they served. That would be a great way for you to demonstrate their military service and us to work with you to determine if their service resulted in a condition and if they've never received benefits for that. So I urge you to reach out and put in an intent to file and let VBA work with you to determine what type of information they would need and what type of benefits you would be entitled to.
And this is if she is the spouse, correct?
The spouse or other dependents, other survivors may receive certain benefits, maybe not the same as what the spouse would have received.
Okay, thank you so much. The second question comes from Willie Ferris. And he says, if you applied for the PACT Act, was turned down, have a 70% disability, and are wondering why I was not updated for disability, being he has high blood pressure and a spleen app, and he uses the CPAP machine. So,
So the, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I didn't want to interrupt it. Is there more to the question?
No, it's pretty choppy. I'm trying to make the best of it as I can. He wants to know if he applied for the PACT Act. Apparently he was turned down. He said he has 70% disability and was wondering why his disability was not updated to include his high blood pressure, and apparently he has sleep apnea.
I'm not sure when time wise he was denied on the claim. You were denied on the claim. But if it's been since the act was passed in August 2022, I mean, if you were denied before that date, you can certainly reapply. But there's certain conditions that are connected to service in a particular area or based on your occupational series, occupations that you're working on in the military. So I'm not sure, high blood pressure, there's probably something more, a definitive disease pathology that if you're manifesting that, they could connect it to a particular area. But I would, urge you, you may have, multiple conditions, maybe more than just one. So I would urge you to definitely reapply and reengage and if it's been since the act was passed, definitely ask for more information about maybe there's more documentation needed for your claim.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Chris. He said he has not heard anything about veterans that served at Camp Lagoon. Lagoon, I believe, is in Jacksonville, North Carolina. And I don't know if he's referring to any toxic substances that may have been there that he was exposed to, as someone that he knows was exposed to.
So for Camp Lejeune, there's definitely been a lot of information about the water.
Yes, he said Camp Lagoon, but apparently he meant Camp Lejeune in North Carolina, and I'm assuming he means the water contamination.
Okay. So when we get the presentation out to you, there's a slide about the Camp Lejeune Justice Water Act and a link there, so it can give you more information about the findings in Camp Lejeune.
Thank you. Question 3 comes from Bill Ashton. He's a Vietnam era veteran. He says, I have a veteran who went into a VA clinic, no disability, and was turned down because of his financial status. You mentioned they could be enrolled in VA healthcare. What is the right answer?
So that was a more recent change that went into effect last year. So I'm wondering what the time frame of that was, where your friend was denied for health care. Because now they can enroll in health care if they served in those certain areas or have certain conditions without first going through the benefits arm.
Okay. Next question comes from, again, Miss Lily Adams. My father participated in the cleanup bomber incident in Spain. Most of the vets that participated are dead now. How will this help?
She said, how will this? So I think, so it's not like you're the surviving daughter. And so I would urge you to reach out to VBA and file a claim with the information that you have about your father's service, and start working with them to adjudicate your claim and let you know what benefits you may be entitled to.
And Ms. Adams, make sure you have a copy of his DD 214 when you file that claim, as it relates to your father's may have been exposed to toxic exposure substances. Question 5 comes from Nicole Clapero, and this question is, he is a Vietnam era veteran added to hypertension presumptive, meaning that a veteran from that era, not boots on the ground in Vietnam, could still apply for hypertension and have it approved. Example, he worked near Panama Canal.
Yes, there's certain presumptions based on your what your occupation was in the military. So if you have any questions about that, I would go ahead and file that as well.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. Question 6 comes from Philip Lay. What should you do if you applied for these in 2001 and was denied with no CMP exam?
Definitely reapply. That's what we're urging all veterans, if you were denied before this act was passed, or have, had an illness that maybe you didn't have, before, you've never received a screening. We just really want you to engage in VA and, again, let us help you to, let you know what proof, you will be able to provide. And so you're getting benefits, but also more importantly, you're getting healthcare to treat whatever condition is manifested. So,
Thank you so much. Question 8 comes from Dean Winrich. Are benefit payments to a veteran as a result of exposure to one of these toxic environments considered disability percentages, or do they have another designation?
that I'm not sure about.
Mhm.
I would have to check in on that.
Question 8 comes from Annette Williams. How do veterans get benefits if they don't have records and the records were destroyed in a fire?
So, any proof that you have, such as letters that you received that have the date stamp or the address and the stamp on them, letters that you wrote to family members while you were there, photos, others that you served with that perhaps their claim has been adjudicated and they're saying that you served with them. So there's a variety of proof that can be provided if the records are no longer there. And so I think you would just apply with whatever information that you have.
And I think this was one question that was asked at the last event we was at, Ms. Sharice, and we talked about how important it is, even if your records were destroyed in a fire, that if you have proof that you were there, you were writing your wife or your spouse, a loved one, and you have those letters, you have pictures, you have other co-workers or co-soldiers that were with you in that squadron, and they know who you are, and you have any evidence, proof of that, that is your proof that you can use to file a claim. And it has been, they can use that as evidence. Yes, yes. Question 9 comes from Jay Davis. I filed a claim last year and have never received feedback on the application. I was stationed on Guam, in Guam, and in Thailand during the Vietnam era.
So you
Yeah,
say you filed a claim last year?
last year. Yes, he said last year.
Okay. Maybe we can, I need maybe some more information and try and look into that for you.
Okay, so that was the last question. If you have any questions for Ms. Smith-Lewis, you can, her point of contact information is on the screen right now. You can send an inquiry to her, or address that question to her, and she will get back with you. One other question just came in from Reginald Parker, and he wants to know, what if you are already 100% and were previously denied for allergic rhinitis and later received a letter from VA stating I may qualify for additional benefits? Is there anything else one can receive?
Let me follow up on that for you.
Okay. Two more questions. A couple of questions are coming in, and we will continue the questioning. We have a few more minutes. Question 11 comes from D. Mrs. Smith-Lewis, should all veterans apply for the PACT? or should we wait till we reach the age of medical issues?
Oh, that's a great question. So no, what you want to do is have your screening right now so that we can know where you served and what your occupational series was. And then when you continue to be engaged with VA, so you get that screening every 5 years. So if your health changes, we can tie that back to your military service. So no, we're not advising you to wait until there's an issue, but to engage early and often with us.
Thank you. Next question comes from Ms. Cecilia Urbacino. What is the likelihood of a disability claim that was previously denied being approved in the process of PACT Act claim approval? And do I need to request that it be reviewed?
I can't answer the question about the likelihood, but I would say yes, definitely reapply.
Question 3 comes from Troy. I have a question. I am a vet and also a CVSO who is helping a vet who were at military bases, currently Superfund sites. Ellsworth Air Force Base, South Dakota, and Marine Corps Air Station, El Toro. They are not listed in the PACT Act. It is hard to find a toxic exposure claim because they are not listed in the PACT Act or other VA presumptive condition. If there are known Superfund sites, is there a lower bar to getting linked to service? It seems difficult, even though they are Superfund sites.
Yeah, I think that there's, continually research that's ongoing. I'm not sure how much research is happening with the Superfund sites, but I think that for that particular question, being that we have a great relationship with the VSOs, I think that's a good way to make a suggestion that that research be done, since we have researchers in VHA who are continuing to explore possible connections between service and disease, so that they can consider that. So that's a great question.
Question 14 comes from Troy. What about vets serving abroad aboard ships and submarines while removal of asbestos prior to 1980s?
Yeah, that definitely, we've had that come up on in other meetings I've been at, and that is something you should definitely go ahead and file a claim about your exposure there.
And question 15 coming from Victor Interiano. Will there be a training? Can't see that right now. Will there be a training on the Dole Act?
Um,
I'm not sure what Victor is
Training.
referring to, unless he's talking about Elizabeth Dole Act. That's the
the
only,
Cleveland Dole, maybe the Cleveland Dole Act.
he doesn't say.
I think if you want to, if you can send me a message, whoever asked the question, I can try and get an answer for you there.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Smith. Victor, if you can be more specific in what you're talking about and send that question directly to her, and she'll get back with you. Question 16 is coming from Chait. After hearing of the PACT, I did a claim. My claim was not processed under the PACT, and it came back denied. How can I ensure claim is being looked at from the PACT Act perspective?
So you don't need to apply specifically and label it PACT Act. But if you, because the staff that we have are trained and they know about the PACT Act, so you just need to explain in your claim your condition and where your service was. So I'm not sure which the grounds were for denying your claim. But if you also want to reach out to me, I can try to help you with that.
Thank you so much, Ms. Smith. And for our audience on the call, please, when you submit your question, please provide and be as clear in what you're asking her so that she can answer you back and provide a good response to you. So make sure you clarify what question you're asking, and giving specific details. The next question comes from M. How can a spouse find out if their spouse of Vietnam era was exposed to toxins if the spouse is not able to answer about his service? He was non-combat.
So you would probably have to have some records, either the DD-214 or some information maybe from those that he served with in order to find that out. It would need some kind of information to get that to get the claim going.
Thank you for that response. Question 18 coming from Cecilia Brasino again. She says, my husband passed in 2020 from a presumptive condition. I didn't know about the PACT Act until 2024, last year. Is there any way to have it retroactive back to 2022?
So it would, if you file a claim, it'll be while it's being reviewed, your claim will go back to the date that you originally filed. So even though your husband has passed on, you as the widow should still file the claim, or your intent to file the claim to set the initiation date for the eventual award of your claim.
Question 19 is coming from Shay again. Submitting a claim, how can I designate it under a PACT? The form to claim did not provide a place to identify the PACT. I think she misunderstands.
Yeah, so you don't need to identify it as PACT. What you need to identify is the condition and where the service was, or the occupation that you served in. And so that should be, hopefully you have the DD-214 that would provide that information. So you don't need to designate it as PACT. You just need to file the claim, and the VBA, they're very familiar with the PACT legislation. They'll be able to process your claim appropriately.
Thank you so much. That seems to be the last question. Ms. Sharice, we thank you so much for your time today. As I mentioned before, if we get any more questions from you, I'm referring to the audience, please submit your question as clearly as you can to Ms. Sharice. You see her point of contact information on the screen now, or you can send it to our team, and we will get it to her, and she will provide a response back to you as soon as she can. At this time, I'm going to turn the mic back over to Mr. Washington for closing remarks.
Thank you.
So can I add one note before that? So I had a couple of questions that I had written down to follow up on. So if we have those, the contact information, great. If not, those.
We'll get that to you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
We'll get that to you. Take care of you. Make sure you're good. Make sure our attendees are good. Thank you so much. And I want to thank you as well for taking time out of your schedule again. And thank you all for joining us. As Sharice mentioned, if we didn't get your question answered, we will make sure that that gets to her. We have all of your contact information because you're registered. Until that time, you all be blessed. Take care of yourselves. We have another webinar next week, which is veteran homelessness, and we have an event this weekend. Go to our website, sign up for our events. We look forward to you connecting with us. Take care of yourselves and be blessed.
A recording of this webinar will be provided on our website at a later date. Please subscribe to our website and Facebook for future webinars and information. This adjourns today's webinar. Thank you for joining us today, and goodbye.